Hello, this is Kate Earl, also known as Earl. My latest album is Tongue-Tied, and you're listening to U.S. Modernist Radio.
Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Oh, I don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna draw mine modern anyhow. Mama don't allow no architecture around here.
Welcome to U.S. Modernist Radio, where we talk and laugh with people who enjoy, own, create, dream about, preserve, love, and hate modernist architecture, the most exciting and controversial buildings in the world. Many of those buildings are located in New York City, but not all of them are open to the public, except for one special weekend in the fall. Joining the show on this Valentine's Day are Pamela Pulchalski and Dee Dunn of Open House New York. By the way, in just a few days, I, Tom Guild, am heading out to Palm Springs for Modernism Week 2022. George Smart of U.S. Modernist Radio is already out there, poolside, interviewing special guests that you'll be hearing on the same podcast over the spring, summer, and fall. There are still tickets available for events at modernismweek.com, but if you can't go this year, hang out with us in 2023. Tickets go on sale this summer, but you can visit usmodernist.org/palm and see what we did this year. I can't wait to find out. U.S. Modernist Radio is underwritten by modernist realtor Angela Roll. In a caper we are making up, modernist realtor Angela Roll was born in Monte Carlo, the love child of a Brazilian heiress and her Italian driver Sergio. Sent to boarding school in the Alps, she snuck out at night to bartend at the five-star resort in Vaal, Switzerland. It was there, in the Peter Zumthor-designed thermal spa, steaming in the November chill, that she overheard a detailed conversation between Stavros Petikov, a wealthy Russian planning a modernist Paris hotel, and famous international architect Jean Nouvel. Inspired, she whipped up a better hotel design on a bar napkin, which she gave Petikov, and with it won the commission. Nouvel was furious, and in his rage became Dr. Evil in Austin Powers movies. Who knew? Yet the resemblance is uncanny. 18 months later at the hotel opening, Nouvel took a cue from the Three Stooges and secretly placed hundreds of banana peels in the new hotel rooms. Dozens of people were injured, and Angela was taken to court. She successfully fought the charges on appeal. Get it? And moved to America to become a real estate agent with modernist architecture training and a great sense of humor. Angela Roll is your special agent. Reach her at angelaroll.com. That's ROEHL, or call 919-995-0550. Open House New York promotes broad, unparalleled access to New York City, to the places, people, projects, systems, and ideas that define New York and its future, and fosters civic dialogue about how the city functions and who it serves. Through year-round programming and the annual Open House New York weekend in October, which ranks among the largest public design festivals in the nation, Open House New York offers a citywide platform for public education and engagement. Executive Director Pamela Pulchalski has degrees in economics, literature, and urban planning. Her previous projects include co-founding the Global Institute on Innovation Districts. As executive director of the American Assembly, she incubated the national Middle Neighborhoods movement. She was also part of the Rockefeller Foundation's 100 Resilient Cities and launched the Global Cities Initiative at Brookings Institution. Open House New York board member Dee Dunn has worked with cultural institutions such as the Getty Museum, the Smithsonian Institution, the Carnegie Corporation of New York, the Robert Rauschenberg Foundation, the Buckminster Fuller Institute, the Rubin Museum of Art, the Philip Johnson Glass House, AIGA, Wasaic Project, and Manitoga, recognized for launching organizations, cross-disciplinary programs, and partnerships. She is also on the board of IDSA and the Greater Hudson Heritage Network. George Smart had the pleasure of attending last year's kickoff party on the roof of the brand-new Stavros Niarchos Foundation Library. Here's George's conversation with Pamela and Dee at the offices of Open House New York.
Before we start talking about Open House New York, which I've attended a couple times, and all the hundreds of sites that you can visit during the weekend, let's start with these amazing parties that you throw to kick things off. Tell me about some of the places you've held these wonderful parties, starting with the most recent one at the Stavros Niarchos Library. Pamela, you want to take this one?
Absolutely. The Stavros Niarchos Foundation Library was a no-brainer for us in planning the launch party for the 2021 Open House New York weekend, which was our 19th anniversary. The theme we were exploring was radical knowledge, where we were looking at the shifting role of libraries as community anchors. And the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Library, which had recently opened, the restoration designed by Mekanu and Beyer Blinder Bell, they introduced a public terrace that is purportedly the highest public space in Manhattan that is free to the public. So it's got these incredible views of the skyline and all of this energy. And we were lucky enough to have perfect weather, and it couldn't have been a more festive crowd and very celebratory. We had mouths agape, eyes wide open, taking in the spectacle that is the skyline. And we couldn't have imagined a better use of a library terrace. Again, because coming out of COVID, people wanted to be outside and celebrate. And I got to say, George, I think we knocked it out of the park.
Wow, you really did. And the party was at twilight, and the sun was setting on these beautiful buildings near the New York Public Library.
That's absolutely true. You also, George, saw the wizard's hat, which is the new crown on top of the Niarchos Library that has this gorgeous patina of blue-green that looks just like the Statue of Liberty green. And I saw you wanting to join the parade of our volunteers with that brass band that kicked off Open House New York weekend. I saw you dancing a little bit.
I was waiting for the conga line to start.
Yeah, exactly. We wanted the dance to go continue a wrap around inside and out, but we thought, no, let's just keep it contained to the terrace, and it was fun.
You've also been to Governor's Island for an event?
Earlier last year, we launched First Out the Gate organization, bringing people together, and that's what Open House New York is all about, providing access and first-person experience of the city to understand, discover, and last year it was very much about recovery, too. So you may know, George, and here's something that I get to put new facts into your head, which I know is not easy, but when Open House New York was founded in 2004, so that was our first weekend, we actually brought the first public to Governor's Island. So at that point, Governor's Island was initially closed to the public, and that was kind of the proof test, if you will, the demand. We brought 1,000 members of the public, turning others away to Governor's Island, and it helped demonstrate the power and the interest that New Yorkers and visitors alike had in Governor's Island. So again, last year in the spring, coming out of the pandemic, we thought the best place to take people was a bit back to the roots of Open House New York. We also honored the Trust for Governor's Island with the Open City Award for all the wonderful work they're doing to really provide increased access, amenities, kind of an economic revival, if you will, and really importantly, a climate hub, a new center that is being developed on Governor's Island. So we got rained out, unfortunately, for that party, but that didn't stop us. As you know, we
You're determined.
By hook or by crook, we're going to bring people together to celebrate New York. So we had the Corson Ferry, which was introduced in the early 50s to bring people to and fro Governor's Island, including Queen Elizabeth in 1952. So we were above the 8-person capacity Corson, and that was a great party spot as we circled the harbor.
Oh, nice. Nice. Now, Governor's Island was originally a federal piece of land, right? That got turned over to the state in the 1990s,
It was actually turned over to New York City for $1 in 2002.
Okay.
So it was a very controversial kind of the federal government. It was a drain.
Could I have bid on that? Because I would have definitely gone in for that.
You could have bid on it. You could have bid on it. I bid $1.50, but I think it was the public intention that won the bid.
Okay. And then you also had this great party out at the new TWA Hotel.
Well, that's similar to the story about Governor's Island because when the TWA terminal was sitting vacant for years and years and years, it was Open House New York that opened it to the public. And when the hotel group that eventually developed the TWA terminal into the TWA hotel saw that on a rainy Sunday, Hundreds of people were lined up in the morning to have access to that site. They realized we might have a viable business here. People will, against weather and time of day, make a journey to this destination. The value of and the power of design is a draw. And that kind of solidified their investment in that property to become a hotel. And we were one of the first groups to celebrate the creation of the TWA Hotel. It was a slumber party. And like all of our events, it was multisensory. We had a new commissioned work by the New York City Ballet performed. We had a new piece of music composed for that architecture, that space performed. A glorious dinner and just giving people unparalleled access to this site. When I posted images, people said, Dee, how did you take photographs without anyone in it? I said, I was wandering around at 2 a.m.
Exactly.
It was fabulous. Cocktails on the Connie, the wonderful historic airplane parked on the tarmac that's now a very hip bar. So we really had unprecedented access to the space to celebrate its glorious transformation from an abandoned but historic terminal to one of New York's finest hotels.
So there's a theme here. Something abandoned, something historic, something restored. There's going to be an open house New York party there.
I think that you're onto something. We say the secret sauce of Open House New York is people, place, connection, experience, but you're going with a kind of lost and found city, which I do. That is true. That's absolutely true. It's the story of New York. We're kind of celebrating the 20th anniversary of Open House New York this year. And the real story of Open House New York is the story of New York itself. Its history, its present tense, and what its future is. And that's whether it's celebrating the power of place, bringing people together, giving them that firsthand access. Books, you can read about a space, you can watch a documentary about a space, but to experience it firsthand, that's the gift of Open House New York.
Open House New Yorkers are curious, and we are an intrepid community. We notice the city around us. We're curious about it. And so when Open House New York invites us to share the experience, that's our sweet spot. And we just have fun together. Certainly, there are many of us who are architects and designers, but we are beyond the architecture and design community.
Oh, way beyond.
So we really are the community of New York City, teachers, lawyers, students, librarians who just love our city and love exploring it. And we have the best stories because of our experiences.
And these are just the parties we're talking about now. So let's move on to the hundreds of events that you put on in the different kind of buildings in all 5 boroughs that get opened up. What are some of the more modern buildings that people have access to during Open House New York? And I want to start with one of my personal favorites, the Salt Building.
So the Salt Shed, maintained by the city of New York, is kind of the perennial favorite, if you will. It's the poster child of Open House New York weekend, where, on the west side of Manhattan, just, next to the Hudson River, you have this gorgeous icon, and who knows what it is? Well, during Open House New York weekend, you get the inside view. And I'm not talking about touch the salt. I'm talking about understanding how the city distributes its salt, how basic city services are provided. And so, the weekend is not time to kind of get people ready for the winter months coming ahead, but there's so much love for that building.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great example of civic architecture becoming sculpture. And it's iconic in its own right now. WXY Studios really embraced the challenge of, in a neighborhood that was not receptive to a building by the sanitation department, public works department, this architect made the most of this challenge to a brilliant solution that is a wonderful addition.
Yeah, why is that no one welcomes the sanitation department to their neighborhood?
Sanitation, we honestly, George, we were just talking about this in the office yesterday with our expanded programming plan, and Department of Sanitation doesn't get the love. But if you take the pulse of your average New Yorker, Department of Sanitation dictates a lot of the experience of services that are provided by the city. The trash pickup, all those boxes on the street. And so where is, as Dee said, the kind of iconic architecture that celebrates this kind of idea of the city serving its communities? And it needs more love, and that's what the Salt Shed represents.
Another favorite building on that score would be the Newtown Creek Waste Treatment Plant.
Oh, yeah. I tell you, you learn a lot about your town when you visit an actual waste treatment plant.
We had Date Day last February 2021.
It was virtual.
And it was a Valentine's Day celebration, and it was so many people embraced it as their best date night, virtual, that we had to offer it twice because it sold out. It was great.
Imagine this, George. 2,000 people signing up to share their Valentines to learn about the digester eggs on the Newtown Creek wastewater treatment facility.
Yeah.
And it was, so we did a virtual tour. There was a pre-recorded session that the city did for us. And then we had a Q&A with the operators. And it was just such a special building, And the public interest is just exponential.
People don't realize the science that has to go into these things. I mean, we think it's just sort of like a pond that we throw, bad stuff, but it's not. I mean, they are working to try to process it and protect the environment and keep the pipes from breaking and all these kinds of factors. It's an engineering challenge.
It's an engineering challenge. It's also an environmental challenge. In 2021, last year, we also gave special access and a tour for the nature walk that sits side by side to the digester eggs. And I was lucky enough to do that on my own early Sunday morning of the weekend. And it was extraordinary. I mean, just the plantings. George Trackus is the environmental artist sculptor who kind of designed that space. And it's just magical. Whether it's in a group or on your own, that's really what Open House New York Weekend is all about, year-round, too. This invitation to go explore, discover, take time for yourself, celebrate where you are, learn about your city. And it's that new understanding of the landscape. And I keep saying this, but it's the power of place to be grounded somewhere that has been so thoughtfully designed. It's wonderful. In New York, we have the benefit of kind of building on from modernism to the future, and this kind of core value that stitches all of our work together is the belief that when you are more connected to your urban environment and where you are, you're kind of a more full soul. Sorry, I got a little bit lost on that one.
Sure, that's okay. Full soul, I got it.
Yeah, no, it's a full soul. And I just, all I can say is having my morning coffee on the Newtown Creek Nature Walk, thinking about Valentine's Day last year and the 2,000 people who had signed up remote, there's an appetite to discover.
Yeah, sure. Now, not all these are modern, but your tours also open up a lot of churches. What are some of those?
Well, I wonder if you have had access, and if not, you should check it out. In 2021, we did this St. Peter's Church, which was developed as part of the Citigroup Center, and the interior of the church was, designed by the most beloved Massimo and Leah Vignelli. And unfortunately, St. Peter's Church could not participate in person. They couldn't open up their space for people to come in because there was a water main break in February of 2021. Exactly.
That's never good.
It's never good. And, concrete doesn't last forever. So this was part of the story of the Beyer Blinder Bell restoration of the TWA Flight Center, that you really need to take care of that core. So St. Peter's couldn't open its doors in person, but it could virtually, and it was a very popular, wonderful event. And no secrets about what's on store this year for the 20th anniversary, but there definitely will be more churches as well.
Now, I'm a cable junkie. I'm watching cable TV all the time. The Learning Channel and the History Channel seem to always want to go underground somewhere. Have you guys done any underground tours for Open House New York?
In the past, people have explored the tunnel of the Old Croton Aqueduct, which was the tunnel that supplied the first fresh water to New York City from the Croton Dam. And the reservoir was originally where Bryant Park is now, in the book stacks of the New York Public Library.
Oh, cool.
And that allowed New York City to grow and develop. Before the aqueduct, there was no way to put out fires, so the city had a lot of fires, and there was very limited potable water. So that was a game changer to the development of New York City. Other underground sites, I know there are many.
You're giving us the idea that we should introduce a new series of New York Underground. I will say last year we did a really fun series, OHNY at Night, where we brought lighting designers together to kind of share their vision and how some really wonderful new icons and older are kind of illuminated. So the experience of light in the city, that was really fun, too.
I've enjoyed tours with the lighting designers on the High Line, and this year I explored Little Island with the lighting designers.
Oh, yes.
And to be on a space with the designers from late afternoon through sunset as they talk about their challenges and how they resolved problems to offer a really sublime evening and nighttime experience is wonderful.
And I know there's at least one, maybe more, abandoned subway stations underground. There's one at City Hall that you fly by occasionally and see the remnants of. That's on all the cable TV shows.
That's exactly
So I'm thinking
right.
There's a perfect place that needs to come back, get restored, and be on your tour.
I will tell you, I'm going to have to talk to Scott Lauer, the founder of Open House New York, who I was fortunate to work with in Open House New York's early days, Dee as well, of course. And I know that was part of the inspiration for Open House New York, really getting those kind of, the Transit Museum does that occasionally, but being able, if you're an interested public, you don't have to sign up for that one organization or that one organization to find out. That's what Open House New York does. So we partner with organizations. As Dee was explaining with those Open House New York at Night, it was the Illuminating Engineering Society of New York, because it's how do you tackle the breadth and excitement and kind of wonder of a city as big as New York as one organization? You've got to do it through partnerships. So that's what we're able to do.
Now, it takes a village to raise a nonprofit, but you seem to have an army.
It's, you know what, George, and if any of the listeners volunteer at ohny.org. I mentioned earlier, the only way Open House New York is able to kind of provide the level of access is for sure through our partnerships with organizations that open their doors, and we've got great relationships there. Not enough, because the city is just, as we said, teeming and expansive, so we'd like to open up more locations, and we're doing that this year in 2022, our 20th anniversary. But it's really the volunteers, again, the public face of Open House New York. They're the ones who meet, greet, do the check-in. Last year, they were checking vax cards for COVID. I mean, it's really members of the public serving fellow New Yorkers and visitors, and that's the motivating factor of what makes Open House New York work. That is the village, which is called a city, and it's got 5 boroughs.
Yeah, it really does. Now, have you had your first OHNY baby yet? Someone born on the tour?
Really?
Not allowed to share those stories.
I know. I figured they might be conceived on the tour. I didn't know if there were any actual births en route.
Fortunately, our volunteers are not staffed with those kind of medical supplies, and we've got a lot of hospitals nearby.
That's good. That's good to know. Okay. Well, you got to be prepared for anything where you're dealing with a number of people. How many people go through in this last year?
2021's numbers are tricky because of COVID. We had to change a lot of our protocols and procedures. So what we were able to do in the past and what we are able to do this year is to provide open access, which means that you don't need a reservation. You can just show up. and Dee and others, we've seen the lines forming around, corners, City Hall, just to get into the building without a special ticket. And in 2021, because of COVID, we had to do everything, almost all of it, as a pre-registration. So the numbers are a little fuzzy because not everybody was used to QR codes from the restaurants. Introducing QR codes for menus, Open House New York leaned in with some new technology. And so 10,000 is roughly the number that signed in. And that was a significant drop from years past. So with the 20th anniversary, we're able to open up more spaces. Partners are better staffed. We're not dealing with the impacts of Hurricane Ida. It's a game changer right now. New administration, it feels, celebrating this idea of really educating and engaging New Yorkers and visitors in places across the 5 boroughs.
And, your COVID hospitalization numbers are, going in the right direction. So that helps too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's so much to do outdoors, the cemeteries, campuses. So there's really always something for everyone, based on your comfort level.
What was fun in terms of something for everyone, and I think this speaks a bit to your audience's interest, the Louis Kahn Four Freedoms Park on Roosevelt Island. In 2021, just speaking to get people outdoors, we did OHNY on the run, and we had a guided run around the park and through the island, and it was awesome to see that kind of celebration and experience. Not the 50th anniversary of the marathon, but a little flavor of that.
Also that same year, there was a new book that came out called Walking Broadway, and we even challenged our participants to walk the length of Broadway through Manhattan with this guide. And people did it, and it was a workout, and they loved it. And that's evergreen for us. We can do that again and again and again. I want to speak to some modernist destinations that are a little off the beaten track, but so important. The Bronx Community College in University Heights was formerly the campus of NYU, and Marcel Breuer created some very important buildings on that campus that are featured during Open House New York. Also in the Bronx, Breuer did a spectacular building for Lehman College. These are great destinations. You feel so welcome during Open House New York weekend to explore the campus, see these buildings, and realize that New York City played a very important role in Breuer's career specifically.
Now, what's going to happen with the Met Breuer right now? Is that under some sort of transition again?
It's now the home of the Frick collection, while the Frick is undergoing some major renovations and additions. So, and everyone who has seen it there reports that seeing the Frick collection in the context of Breuer architecture is profoundly different than seeing it in the Frick Mansion.
In the Frick Mansion,
to compare and contrast and to challenge yourself to look at art differently, that's a great opportunity. And of course, we've been to the Frick to learn about the changes underway. That's what we do. If something is changing, we're there. We have the contacts, we explore it, we talk to the architects, and it's exciting to kind of have a preview of what's to come.
Well, if the Frick is there temporarily, that implies they're going to be moving back to their own home base at some point, which means there's going to be a renovation of a historic structure, which is party time for you guys.
Party time. And one thread I want to connect here is we usually end up getting these party spaces because as Dee was explaining, we follow their development. So usually when something is on the drawing boards or even in construction, we'll do a session open to the public to educate, just kind of bring folks into what the story is of this place, what is its future use, and then we'll do more specialized access for our open council through like a construction, a hard hat tour, meet the team, get an inside view of what's being torn down and revealed or what's going up. And that really is what buys us the currency, if you will, forgive the pun there, to have a party there and celebrate. And Open House New York is like any nonprofit. We're struggling. We're small. How do we grow? It's really grounding ourselves in where New York City is growing and what its past, its current, its future is that gives us this kind of gravitas of a civic organization.
Yes, very Walter Cronkite, yes.
Yes.
Open House New York initially was just a New York thing, but you now are pulling in people from all over the place that come in just for this weekend.
That's exactly right. We have people who come in from across the country and the world. And I would say in 2020 and early 2021, when we did a lot of virtual programming, we found an international audience. And that's something that we're capitalizing on in terms of continuing hybrid offers like other organizations are doing in terms of virtual and in person. But, as we've said before, nothing like being in the space in person to kind of feel the magic.
I mean, people are just so excited to be able to come in a short period of time and see so much in such an organized fashion, which you could never do on your own.
That's right. Special access. It's worth the trip. It's worth giving yourself a gift at that weekend to wear very comfortable shoes.
Yes.
And explore and have fun. And along the way, you will see other people sharing similar experiences. And it's always fun to say, oh, where are you going? Where are you going next? Where are you going next? You can't do it all. But over the years, you keep expanding your universe of interesting spaces and destinations throughout New York City.
Now, when I observe two of the tours, and of course my sample size is very small, I noticed a lot of conversations that people were having about the fact that they were New Yorkers, but they were using the subway for the first time on this weekend to jet around all the different boroughs to see things. This was like a new adventure to use their own subway.
Sometimes people will explore their own neighborhood anew, but often participants say, wow, where have I not been? And then you get hooked. And then you try to, push yourself a little bit further. It's kind of like, well, let's do one more. Let's go one more place, one more. And certainly the subways are the best way. Last year, I went from the archives at BAM, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, which in and of themselves told the history of Brooklyn's development through a cultural lens, to a new library designed for teens on 145th Street in Washington Heights, to Little Island on the west side. That's a huge triangle, but it's worth it. It's fun to push yourself.
I think also something, since we are in the 20th anniversary of Open House New York, to think back to its founding in the first year, 2003, there's a new consciousness of the city now, which is kind of more expanded, Manhattan. It's not Manhattan-centric anymore. And so like last year when we did a Brownsville walking tour with the Brooklyn Public Library to look at all of the new developments and projects and kind of get this understanding of how the neighborhood functions and how the new libraries by Louis Cermaki Lewis for the Brownsville branch is like fitting into the neighborhood context. That's special, and you just can't get it any other place than Open House New York.
Right.
Something else about the founding, it was soon after 9/11, which for obvious reasons, New York City was becoming a bunker. People were nervous and worried. You saw Jersey barriers everywhere. And Scott Lauer, who had experienced Open House in London, said, instead of locking everything up, what if we open everything up? What if we invite everyone in? Isn't that a better way toward security and feeling a sense of being at home and at place in your city than barriers and locks? And it has served this city very, very well to approach it as a place to explore through access and experience rather than closed doors and suspicion.
And that's actually global. I think here's a fun fact. Scott Lauer got the inspiration to create Open House New York and found, a lot of like-minded souls who wanted to support that effort. he was inspired by Open House London that had been around for, I think, close to 10 years before Open House New York. We were the second open house city to kind of take off. Since then, 50 open houses across the world. And I lived in London for a few years, but I get to plug this. This is the power of New York, that if something happens here, it really does catch the attention. And as Dee said, we were all looking at kind of securitizing our cities, and that while security is important for sure, it doesn't come at the cost of public engagement and public access. That's a fine line to balance. New York is doing it really well, and a lot of other cities are learning and growing with us in that endeavor.
So one category of buildings I have to ask about, a little controversial here. Have you ever thought about getting people up into some of the super talls?
Oh, George, we do go into the super talls.
All the time.
I missed this.
This is a little bit part of the become a member, join the Open Council. And again, we're expanding that access. I will say one of the most remarkable experiences I had, this is like just on the heels of Open House New York, we got into, and I'm telling some stories here, there's the Dime Savings Bank in downtown Brooklyn that was born just at the beginning, like 1901, 1902. I can't remember exactly the year it opened. And it was very simple, bring a dime and open a savings account. Now, in the wake of the stock market crash, Dime Savings Bank was expanding. They were an incredible building anchoring downtown Brooklyn and really pulling in a great clientele, very popular bank. And that building had served as a bank up until like the early, I think like 2015 or so. And so it closed. It's been renovated. It opened this year, 2022, but there's a new tower being developed by JDS and Shop Architects. And we took folks up to the 64th floor while it was in construction.
Was this the one next to the Steinway showroom?
It's Fulton Street. It's right at Albee Square.
Okay.
So
I think I saw this on the History Channel too.
Oh,
on one of those
amazing.
documentaries.
Well, you can watch the History Channel or you can experience the history and future of New York through Open House New York. But yeah, so we got up into the super tall. It's the massive tower for New York, and it's gorgeous. And also in the spring of 2021, we took folks up to the new TSX Times Square building in Times Square, which is like a $3 billion development. I mean, it's just a major...
And a restoration of the Palace Theater there.
That's right.
Major.
So we get to the heights.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's super.
From sidewalk to skyline, George. Well, there's a new song for you.
Is that a T-shirt I can get?
I'd like to commission a song, please.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But we are very careful not to bring a prejudice about architecture to our programming, because the more we have access, the more we experience, the more we will know and be able to have informed dialogues about changes in our city and the future of our city. So we welcome access to all kinds of buildings.
So
we don't judge.
For example, there has been a lack of investment in a number of disenfranchised neighborhoods. It's, why they're disenfranchised. And this year, the Queens Public Library opened up I don't remember the price tag, but it's in the $40-50 million range, a new library in Far Rockaway, just on the beach, by Snowhetta. And so that kind of, whose radar is that on, right? Like, you may be in the library world and following it, but that is the, bear with me, privilege that Open House New York has, which is to partner with a number of organizations and certainly the library system to see where they're investing in neighborhoods across the city that again are not, it's the full 5 boroughs that we're looking in.
And there's one on Hunts Point, too,
Hunts
a new
Point,
library
there's
there?
There's a new library there. That kind of capital investment, which also ties into a theme we're looking at this year, building capital, kind of like where the money flows, how it flows, and how it's kind of intended to build quality of life in the city. I mean, that's essentially what architecture's best aspirations are about, actually doing something for someone.
So you all have really been able to stick with the times and yet honor the past, right?
I think so.
Absolutely.
And your new mayor-elect was just on record recently he's going to take his first paychecks in Bitcoin. Right, did you see that in the paper?
I did hear that.
Yes. So I have to ask, does Open House New York accept crypto yet?
Not yet.
Okay, you need to work on that. That's happening. That's a thing.
That's a thing. I hear you, George. I hear you.
All right, well, thank you both for chatting with me. This has been delightful. I can't wait to come back up and do the tour.
Yep.
Look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
George,
Yes.
you're down at the pool in Palm Springs?
Oh, it's great. It's great. I'm just lying back here. I got the Wi-Fi going. I got a little drink by my side. It's sunny and cool and perfect.
Okay. Can I give you like one little tiny job while
Sure.
you're poolside?
One job, one tiny job.
You know, read your lines for the close.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey, thanks for listening, dudes. U.S. Modernist Radio is underwritten by Modernist Realtor, Angela Roll. Okay, Tom, that's my line.
All right. I'll see you soon. Visit usmodernist.org's massive archives to listen to past shows, discover documentation of 12,000 significant modernist houses, and access 4 million pages of classic 20th century architecture magazines. U.S. Modernist Radio is produced by Soundtracks Recording Studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our theme song was performed by George Smart and Robinson Earl. Someone, we won't say who, unalphabetized the spices and rogue archivist Carrie Cesarino's kitchen. There will be a spicy hell to pay at taco night tonight. U.S. Modernist Radio is a production of Modernist Archive Incorporated, a nonprofit educational archive for the documentation, preservation, and promotion of modernist residential design. I'm Tom Guild. George and I'll be back soon with another I Love New York Valentine's Day edition of U.S. Modernist Radio.